All right, good to be back. Today, I want to kind of give a more detailed answer for someone who asked on the channel. If I had to choose between the Asvine J16 or the Asvine P36, which one would I choose? And I, I gave them an answer, but I wanted to give a little more detail. Now, first of all, I want to, let me first say that both of these pens are an excellent choice. Asvine puts out a great product, I think. For the Chinese fountain pens, I would say Asvine is my favorite, and pretty much any pen I get from Asvine, I'm going to be pleased with. All right, so I'm just going to go through some of the similarities, differences, and all of that. I don't want to make this video too long. I'll put links in the description as well as at the end of this video for the individual reviews on each one of these pens. As far as their initial look, you have the P36. Both of these are made of titanium, but the P36 has a lot of acrylic, clear acrylic, so that is going to lessen the weight of the P36. The J16 is all except for the clip and the band. It's titanium. And this particular one is brushed titanium. And then the metal on the P36 is titanium as well. Both of these come in two finishes. The J16 will come in a more of a shiny titanium, and the Asvine P36 comes in like a bronze / brass type finish. I think they call it a brass. It's a faux brass. It's not an actual brass, full brass. It's got like a brass finish, probably on brass. I don't know. But anyway, now with that brass finish on this one, they call it, I think it's a P20. I'd have to look that up. But it's not, P36 in another finish. So the length of these pens cap, you'll see that the J16 is just a little bit longer, and I think it's due just simply because that blind cap there is a little bit longer, a little thinner, a little bit longer. The J16 is actually a little bit girthier in the body. It really isn't noticeable just because it bulbs up in this area. The P36 has a little bit wider cap, but I mean, for all practical purposes, they're about this. They're the same size. You're not going to really notice that much in the size there. Removing the caps, you start noticing even more differences. For instance, in the grip sections, you put them together. The P36 has a little bit longer grip section than the J16, but it also has a shorter nib. Now, both of these are number 16 nibs. The J16 has a JoWo nib, and I believe that J stands for JoWo. And the P36 has an Asvine nib. And I believe you can get these with Bach nibs sometimes too. Again, they're both number 6 nibs, so I don't know if the Asvine just sits down further into the grip section or not. The JoWo nib is wider at the shoulders than the Asvine shoulders. So there's a little bit of difference there. So lengthwise, if you put the grip section, the top of the grip section there together, the bodies are pretty close. In fact, in this case, the P36 may be just a tad bit longer, but they're pretty close. And then obviously the J16 is longer at the nib at the top there. Now, where does that really affect anything? Well, it can. Usually a smaller nib, or a shorter nib at least, will cause you to write at a higher angle, which that may work for you. So I'm just going through some of the difference here. Now you can always hold the pen back just a little bit to get that angle, to lower that angle, but that's not. This isn't uncomfortable, but it's not as comfortable as holding it at the nib. The J16, if you hold it in the normal position, it already has a little more of an angle because the nib is longer. Again, you can hold that back and do the same thing, get even more angle. The capping and uncapping is a little bit different too. The P36, and again, it all depends on what you're looking for. The P36, it's plastic on metal, but it has a little more. Get over here by the microphone. A little more of sharper sound, whereas the J16, much kind of a softer. Now it's plastic on plastic. Now this might be a softer plastic because it's a plastic insert there, whereas this is the same harder acrylic. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. But they're both good. Both have nice clips. Both are tight enough, but not too tight. The cost of these pens also will vary. The P36 you can get for in the mid 40s, whereas the J16 you're going to be paying in the high 50s. So, and that's probably because it has more titanium. I'm assuming. Let's see that. Okay, I'm gonna talk about the ink flow with the writing sample. So just to again, I give a little more detail on each of these in their separate review videos, just for quick size comparisons, because I have these two pens also out using here. Okay, here you have the Lamy Studio, and then this is the Diplomat Excellence A2. Okay, almost said A+. A+ is different than the A2. All right. So anyway, okay, how about I go ahead and give a writing sample. I did this once and the microphone was off, and so I'm going to have to do this again. All right, let me fix my focus. Zoom in. All right, over here you have the Asvine J16. Both of these are number 6 and medium nibs, and I am using Diamine Blue Black No hard starts or skips. Remember, this is a Yovo nib and feed. Smooth in all directions. Wetness. A nice wetness. Reverse writing. Very smooth. Starts giving out there a little bit. But for just a short little note on the side, it works well. All right, I'm not gonna do line variation because this is steel nib. They're not made for flexing and all that, so that's kind of a moot point with these pens. Over here, we have the Asvine P36 medium. No hard starts or skips. Smooth in all directions. It's wet enough, but it's a little bit drier than the J16. Not too much. Let's see, reverse writing. Gets the job done there. And it actually continues well. All right. Now both of these pens, I mean they both perform well. I mean I have no issues, problems really with either one of these pens. Now, as far as writing, the only downside is when you are writing with the P36, there will come a point where it's going to start drying out just a little bit. Recently, I just had to, and this is why I have a little more space there. I had to move up the piston a little bit to get some ink into that feed because it started drying out just a little bit. There's not hard starts or skips. It's just you can start seeing when the ink starts getting a little bit low. You know, even sometimes with our converter, pens that have converters, sometimes if you want a little more saturated, you move the ink up and you increase that saturation. But this one started getting a little too dry for my liking, so I'd have to resaturate that feed, and that helped. And then it keeps going. It's been doing well since, but eventually it will go down. And you can see that little channel there between the reservoir and the grip section, the feed, where it's starting to dry out. A little bit might drip down in there, but it's maybe that's the problem. But like I said, that's a small issue. The J16, it just flows. It stays wet, so I don't have any problem with that. Okay, so let's see. How about get my closing thoughts here. All right, so get that, zoom out a little bit. All right. The P36 is a little more affordable. It has a cool factor to it. And so, like if you're an engineer or artist or whatnot, there's some professions where maybe a cool factor will work. I say professions, but it's just you at the desk too, right? Sometimes. So other professions like, the business professionals, you might want to go with a little more subdued look. But I mean, even this is kind of like, for an engineer, it's kind of techie looking, as far as the brushed titanium. But anyway, but you have this a little more businessy looking. This is a little cooler. So, there's that. And then the cost difference is there. But as far as their writing experience, they're both nice. But when I'm writing with one and then switch to the other, I definitely find a difference with the J16. To me, with that Yovo nib and feed system, it makes it a little bit better than the P36. And again, that's not a slam against the P36. I love the pen. I may get that brass/bronze version of it. But, if I had to choose one or the other, I would go with the J16. All right, there you go. Now, I've got these two videos here, the links to their full review, and invite you to go check those out. And I appreciate you watching. You have a great day.